Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I want to say thank you as well for coming on, Kelsey. For those of you who don't know, full disclosure, Kelsey and I have a mutual acquaintance, very awesome progressive state representative here in Washington State. So we've talked a little bit back and forth, and I do plan to help out when I can. For some of the interview style things. So one of the things I've noticed about Thurston County uh, is there has been a rapid amount of growth. I lived in Yelm when I was a kid, and when I lived in Yelm, which for those of you who don't know is a very small town in Thurston County, there was just the main street and a grocery store. And now I go back and there's a ton of housing developments. There's apartments. There's a Walmart, which was shocking. But as a college student who actually happens to attend the Evergreen State College, there are some unique concerns that I have because I've seen what rapid development does. Having being from Seattle and living most of my life here in Tacoma, Washington, which is now seeing its own incredible spike in housing developments being built. We're seeing historically black neighborhoods are being torn down, houses are being raised to put in coffee shops and micro studios, and housing costs are skyrocketing. So how do you plan to kind of curb that enthusiasm there? And if for what development is done, how do you feel about affordable housing? Because I do know a lot of us that attend the Evergreen State College are mostly from this state, and a lot of us are having a really hard time finding a place to live because there's not much affordable housing in the area.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we constantly have to be looking at, right? Is are we producing, are we building a variety of housing options for a variety of different kinds of people? Where I live in the unincorporated county, and right now there are 5 different housing developments going in out by me within about 5 miles of me, most of which were forest land before, right? So this is all new development. And then they put up these signs that say, houses starting at 420K or 450K or something. And, I just stand there looking at that sign and go, is that the housing that we need? Is that what we're missing? Because it doesn't feel like that from my perspective. So, I mean, I think like I said, it will be very hard to roll back any growth or development that we allow to happen. So we have to make these choices now. But to me, what brought me to Thurston County and what I think a lot of people value and contributes to the quality of life here is proximity to forest land and open spaces and rural and agricultural land. The ability to produce food in this community, I think, is huge and is a big part of what makes it a really great place to live. And so if we want to have forests, if we want to have farms, if we want to have open space in the future, we have to protect that right now. And so those are land use decisions that have to be made. In terms of housing and where do we put it, what we really need to look at, and it's interesting because I was not endorsed by the Realtors Association. My opponent was, but I had a great conversation at the door with a realtor who was talking about how she moved up from, I want to say California, but she was really fascinated by what a fixation there was on new development as opposed to rehab and infill development, which is what you see in a lot of other communities. And that's where I think our opportunities lie, right? Whether you look, regardless of where on the economic spectrum or where on the price spectrum you're looking, we need to be looking at what can we do with developed land, land that's already developed, what's redevelopable, where can we really put infill development, where can we make things more dense, because those are going to be the places that we can also deliver services like transportation or water or wastewater, all the infrastructure pieces that really end up costing a lot of money. So I think affordable housing has got to be, it's always got to be part of the discussion. That's never going to be something that's finished. And I think it's often talked about like, well, we'll build this project and then we'll have affordable housing and, yippee. But I think there's not a lot of acknowledgement that that's going to be that has to be an ongoing discussion. It always has to be a balancing and rebalancing of, again, do we have the types of housing that we need? And, right now in this community, we're closer than it is in King County, but we've got work to do on that as well. And like I said, when I see the majority of units going up near me being incredibly expensive, that makes me feel like maybe we're missing the mark.
I definitely agree with that. And one of the things I've noticed, at least since, and for those who are familiar somewhat with Thurston County, I left Thurston County in 1998, and we moved from Yelm to Lakewood, Washington, which is a very dense urban area. It's part of the city of Tacoma and Pierce County. I noticed a boom almost because of farms declining in their profits and people not being able to hire as many people to come and help out. There was a huge spike in drug abuse in the more rural areas of Washington, and it appears that Thurston County was not exempt from that. How do we move forward in treating people in Thurston County like people? One of the talking with some of my classmates and some of my professors, they've had some really bad run-ins with police when they've called either asking for help. Recently, we've seen that 2 young black men were shot just in this last year. They had armed with nothing but a skateboard. I'm hearing from people out there like, yeah, there's a lot of people out here who have severe methamphetamine addictions who are just being cycled in and out of jail, and that's costing the taxpayers money. What are some things that you think the county commission could do to kind of help reverse that trend, the cyclical nature, of the way we treat people addicted to drugs, and how do we really integrate police and train them, because there is an explosion of population in Thurston County, and that includes people of color like myself, who might be a little leery of what we've already heard and what we've experienced, especially in the larger cities.
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's several great points in there. But I think a big part of it is, let me back up a minute. So in terms of the county budget, we've got a structural budget deficit right now, and so we do a lot of talking about how can we raise revenue to address that problem. But the other piece of that is how can we recognize cost savings in the long run? And one of the places where I think that is where we've got the greatest capacity for that is in the particularly in the prison system, right? Because we do tend to incarcerate people over and over and over again. They get caught in a cycle where they're just going, round and around and around, and it's not solving any problem. It's not helping anybody. And so, in this county, we've had some real success in the juvenile justice system using restorative justice and judicial reform and alternative courts and some of these more progressive policies to get youth out of that system, right? To actually look at what are the challenges that they're facing, what is causing them to be in a situation where they are committing crimes, and how do we get them out of that situation, right? How do we change the story there? And so I think we can look at the juvenile justice system, and say, what have we learned there that we can put to work with our adult populations? Because right now we haven't made those same progressive reforms for the adult prison population, and I think we can and we should. And I think not only is it the right thing to do, because it absolutely is, but also we will see that it costs a lot less on a per person basis if we're not just cycling these folks through the system. So I think that's one piece of it. The other piece that I've been really encouraged by is I have been reaching out to two folks in law enforcement, and there are a lot of them who want to be better, who want to be held to high standards, who want to be accountable to their communities, who see themselves as servants of their communities, and they want to be part of a solution rather than a problem, right? And so I'm really encouraged by that, because while we certainly have our challenges here as well as nationwide, I see that as sort of the seeds of change, right? Like the critical things that need to exist to be able to create a more just system are there. We just have to keep pushing on it, right? We have to keep making changes where we can, keep moving forward, keep working together, keep focused on the fact that this is all of our community together, and that we're responsible for it together. So how do we create the community we all want to live in?
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. I think this has been an enlightening conversation, because one of the things that I understand about the county commission, this is prior to, and then I feel that having this conversation is added on to it, is that a lot of people understand is I view the county commission kind of like the mayor of the county, right? You have a set number of people on the county, whereas a mayor might be the executive branch for the city, the county commission is that executive branch for the county. And because of that, you guys have to take into account all of these different ideas about what's going on. But one of my last real big question, and I think this is going to be a little bit deeper, and I'm kind of curious as to what your answer will be, is as populations expand, as cities get larger, as we're seeing with Olympia, especially with Evergreen State becoming more and more recognized, so more and more students are wanting to go there, the graduate programs that it offers, with Yelm having apartment complexes and Lacey starting to add more, inner-city transit is going to be absolutely key. And as students, from Tacoma, like myself, I know when I walked onto campus last year, there was a huge, huge piece of art about the Upward Bound program of Lakewood and Tacoma, trying to get students to go to Evergreen State. Those of us from this area who live up here rely on inner-city transit to get back and forth, but there's very little bus routes that go from Olympia to Tacoma. It's incredibly hard to manage to find time to go to college, to work, and then still have to catch the bus. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like if you're someone who lives in one of the more rural parts of Thurston County, and there's already such limited bus service. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's much better than Pierce Transit right now. But how do we make that more accessible to people? Because A, it will help combat climate change. The less people we have out there driving, the less CO2 we're getting put in the air. But it also it's much more convenient, especially for people such as myself who come from incredibly low-income houses, for us to get around, because we can't always afford a car or gas or insurance.
Yeah, and I think that is a piece of a larger question around what are the services that we need in this community, and how do we pay for them, right? Rather than, one of my feelings or frustrations has been that we tend to approach things from sort of a revenue-starved position, where we go, okay, well, what's the cheapest option, right? We know we have no money, so what's the least expensive thing we can do? And I take very seriously the responsibility of stewarding taxpayer dollars, but I think we're asking the wrong question. I think the question should be, what is it that the community needs, and then looking at how do we pay for it, right? And I think particularly around transportation and around intercity transit, I know that they have some leadership there that would love to, they want to see ridership expanded, they want to see routes expanded, they want to do more. So I'm not sure what the right answer is in terms of that happening, but it is going to be a key piece. My belief is that this part of the world, Western Washington, is one of the most beautiful places in the country, that people will continue to want to live here in perpetuity. People are never going to get tired of it. They're never going to, we're never going to be full. And aside from, building a wall, people are going to continue to come, right? And so then it becomes a density issue. And as we're addressing that housing piece, right, that we talked about a little earlier in terms of infill development and density and where we put people, transportation is going to be a key piece of it, because we also can't, there is no functional system in which every person in a dense city has a vehicle, right? Like, that doesn't work. And one, because it's unrealistic just in terms of the means of people that live in that variety of housing options we talked about before, but two, just logistically, that doesn't work. So we really will need to make some substantial investments in infrastructure, and it's something that we should be preparing for. I mean, we shouldn't be planning for just next year, the year after that, right? We should be talking 5 and 10 and 25 years down the road. What's our community going to look like, and what are the actions that we take today to build toward that vision?
And I want to say thank you for joining us. And I want to thank you for your honest and passionate leadership. I also want to open up the floor for anybody else. If Brandon or Dave have a question, Eric, if you want to jump in again. I really want to say I appreciate the honesty in the answers that you've given and the future that you have. So you definitely have my vote, though. You had it before.
Mine too.
Thank you.
I would love to see you get up there. I think you're going to do absolutely amazing things for the county, and I really hope to work closely with you in the future as a citizen of Thurston County. Anybody else have any questions?
Brandon looked like he was asleep. Is he
He's
muted?
talking and muted.
Yeah, he's talking to me. You gotta unmute yourself, Brandon.
Sorry, no, I was listening. I was also looking at the YouTube chat and making sure everything was all right.
Did you have any questions, Brandon, before we let Kelsey go?
Oh no, I don't have any questions. I like the answers I've heard, especially as it relates to housing and transportation. I once lived in a town that sounds similar to the situation you have going on, where every commute was a 3-hour commute. Every commute was I have to take bus A to bus B, and the buses only come once every 45 minutes. And you try to explain to them, like, listen, I'm going to school. I want to have a life. And the buses stop running at 5 p.m. and they don't run after 3 p.m. on Sunday. What kind of functionally, how can I work? It's like functionally, how can I go to class and then have a job across town? It's going to take me 3 hours to get to and from. It's just not really a functional kind of situation to live in. Like transportation, just to talk about the Green Party, transportation is a big part of, the Green Party's platform. As just to bring it up, because you don't hear a lot. The idea that transportation is a human right, being able to get from point A to point B is a human right, and also has a big effect on whether or not you live in food security or not. I know for me, where I lived in that situation, I had no access to food within the immediate area, and every trip to the grocery store was a 3-hour trip to the grocery store. And I don't know how cold it gets in, Washington, but it would get to negative 20 degrees in upstate New York. Negative 20, negative 25. And it was, okay, well, can I go get food this week or today, or should I just eat pizza all day? Because otherwise I'm going to freeze. So access to transportation, public transportation is it's an issue dear to my heart.
Well, before we let you go, Kelsey, we want to give you a couple minutes here to just give some closing remarks and let people know where they can find you. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. I would encourage everybody to check out my website. The website's www.kelseyhulst.com. Simple. But would really encourage everybody to get involved in a local race. Right, and that's something that Katie talks a lot about, and you talked about earlier in the show. But I think this is, there are two things that I'm really passionate about outside of the policy issues in this race, and one is getting folks involved in the political process who never have been before. Right, bringing people into whether it's fundraisers or sign waving or doorbelling or whatever. Let's bring people in that haven't been involved before, because my belief is the more people that are involved, the better a system that we'll have. And two, let's build the government that we want from the ground up. Let's build some trust. Let's build some faith in government by being honest and open and transparent and forthcoming, because that is how we'll change this whole system, right? It's going to start at the grassroots level. It's going to start at the bottom, at the local level, and work its way up. But we can do it. People don't give up. So please do, continue to fight your fight in whatever way you see fit, but get involved and encourage other people, encourage your friends to get involved, help them find a little way that they can play a role in a city council campaign or something at their county level, because that's where it all starts and that's where change will be made.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that's very important, and that's one thing here at Project Sanity that we try to do, and this is kind of our way to try to help get people involved, keep people informed, and I don't think there's a significant amount of people that do this kind of thing with local level candidates, and so that's very important. People staying involved. I know we're all committed to doing that. So I think that we're going to move on to the next part of the show. Kelsey, you're more than welcome to hang out in the hangout. I guess I just said the same word twice. And listen to what's going on. And I think that we're going to move on to what we call a deep dive. But before we do that, just want to go ahead and do some station identification type stuff. You're watching us right now on a couple different places. ProjectSanity.org, which is our independent YouTube channel. You're also watching us on Benjamin Dixon's channel, who has been so gracious as to host us so that his audience can see us as well. And then Dave has us streaming in beautiful, full color on Our Revolution TV on YouTube. And so Dave's getting everything situated here, and we're going to switch on over. Oh, yeah, we're on Twitch now, too. I mean, we're just too many places. I don't know. Thank you, Kelsey.
Yes, thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you
Bye.
guys. This was awesome.